All right, so got the Mini jacked up. That is not its wheel gap. That's it jacked up actually. So got that side up, right rear, and we got the left rear up off the ground. We're going to take the wheels off here in just a second, and we'll get to work on this. One thing I do need to mention is if you have your doors locked and you jack up your car, you set the alarm off. I just found that out. So make sure you have your car unlocked before you jack it up, or else the alarm goes off. All right, let's get these wheels off. All right, so rear wheel is off. Sorry, it's kind of dark. It's about 6 o'clock in the evening, so I have to use my light here. This is the spring that we're going to be changing right there. It's just sitting in a little pocket there, and it's sitting in a little pocket down there, so no real attachment. It's just kind of sitting in there. You just have to drop this hub down enough to pull it out. And how we're going to do that is one bolt at the bottom of the strut right there. We'll pop that out. And I believe I have to take this sway bar nut out as well and loosen that sway bar, and that should allow me to drop that down. I'm not sure about that one. I don't think I need to loosen that because from the looks of it, it's going to pivot on that point, so I don't think I do, but I'll take a look at that in a minute. We've got a couple lines here we do need to take off just to make sure we don't snag one of those, so I'll just loosen them up right there. And this is probably a wheel sensor. This is probably your brake caliper sensor, and yeah, that should be it. The brake line is here. Pretty sure I have enough play there. I might be able to pop that off as well. Yeah, so just to be safe, I'm gonna let that kind of hang loose there as well. So brake line, then a couple sensor cords here, and that should allow this thing to kind of swing on down once I get those bolts off there. So let me take those off. All right, so we managed to get everything disconnected here. I was correct. It is this bolt coming out, but the order that you do it in should be the opposite than the way that I did it. So disconnect your rear sway bar first. That's this guy. Because once you disconnect your strut, the hub drops, and that puts a lot of tension on these guys right here. So disconnect your strut bolt second, do this one first. Because what I ended up having to do is, since that was disconnected down there, I ended up having to get my jack here, actually lift up on the hub just to get tension off of this. So anyway, now that your rear sway bar is disconnected, your strut's disconnected, this hub is pretty free to move. So there's your spring right there. You simply press down on it, and that spring comes right on out. Not connected with anything, just in there with tension. Here's the original. There's the original. There's the new H&R. Don't see that much of a height difference right now, if any at all. What I do see is coil difference. A lot more coils here. So I'm assuming this is probably going to compress a little bit more than this one. That's what's going to give us our 1.2 inch ride height difference. There is a little rubber cup on the bottom of this. We just need to take that off and put it right in here. There we go. That's pretty much it. It sits right in there. Yeah, put it just like that. It's just how it was in this one. Yeah. And there's 2 little pegs here. These 2 little pegs line up with these 2 little holes right here. So make sure those little pegs get in there. So let's see if we can drop it in there real quick. One-handed. So while I'm holding the iPhone in one hand, let's grab this spring. I grunt like it's heavy. It's really not. I'm not gonna be able to do it one-handed. It's gonna be pretty simple. I just gotta have another hand to press it down so I can get it past this area. So let me put the iPhone down for a second, and I'll be right back. All right, tip number 2. This little star tip here with all the rust on it goes right here. And then you tighten this bad boy up with a wrench, because I had a originally I just had a socket on there trying to get it, and it's like, man, it's spinning. And I was looking over here, there's nothing to hold the other side, but what they do is they give you a little looks like a T20 in here, and you just drop that bad boy on there and then hold your lock nut with a wrench, and voila, you can tighten that guy right on up, but not with one hand, hence I have to stop the video. All right, so everything is connected. There's the new springs, rear sway bar is connected, my strut is connected, got all my sensor wires back in their little brackets. There's the oil, or the brake line back in its bracket. Everything's ready to go back on. So we're just going to grab that tire right there, throw it on here, and well, actually I'll probably do the other side next, just in case I do have to come over here and maybe loosen this back up, because I'm thinking maybe I've got tension on that other one on the other side, but we'll see. We'll take a look at it. So that's it for the rears. Pretty straightforward. So let me do the other side and I'll be right back. All right, so we got them on there and got the tires back on there. Nothing dramatic, but according to the tape measure, just as it sits right now, it is an inch lower than what it was. I initially had 18 inches from the bottom of the mini cap. I'm sorry, I had 19 inches from the bottom of this mini cap up to the lip of the fender there. That was 19. Now it's reading 18. So dropped an inch, believe it or not. It's still a huge gap. It's just ridiculous, but you know, it's Countryman and it's an all-4, so that's what you get. I'm thinking it's going to settle after a little while. Certainly the rears. I haven't touched the front yet. I'm getting ready to work on the front. The backs are real simple. Like I showed you, not much to them. It took me about 10 minutes to do the other side. So it's pretty straightforward. The fronts are going to be a little bit more involved. You actually have to take the shock out of it and compress the spring, get the spring off it, and then reassemble the shock again. But I'll do a few videos in the interim. But again, nothing real dramatic right now. But I am thinking that I just got it off the jack, so the shock is still, or the strut is still extended. The spring obviously is brand spanking new, so it's doesn't have much play in it, and I think it'll settle as we go on. I'll take another measurement here in a few days and see how it goes. Alrighty, let me get to work on the front. All right, so we're going to work on the front here. So I'm on the passenger side. This is the top of the shock, and just wanted to point a couple things out here. This has electronic dampening control. So this little connector here, it's an electronic connector, connects to the top of this shock right here, and this pin just pulls straight out. There's actually 2 little teeny tiny pins in there, so don't be sticking a screwdriver down there or socket or anything like that. So just be careful with that, and make sure they line back up with your connector here. So that obviously needs to be disconnected, because we're actually going to physically take this shock out. There's a rubber cap that goes on top of that. Pop that cap off, and then you also have a secondary cap here that comes off, and then the bolts for the shock are here, right there, and there's another one there, and there's another one there. Might be one there as well too. There's 1, 2, 3, there are 4 of them, and then I've got Might even be 5. There's one back there too. I'm just not sure if they all connect to the shock. I'm gonna find out here once I lift the car up and get it up. There's also this support bar right here that bolts right there. I'm not sure if I'm gonna have to take that off. I'm gonna find out because it looks like that it is bolted to the top of the shock right there. So I've got some research to do, and we're gonna figure it out because there's not much online, so it's kind of a hit or miss kind of thing. But you know, if I take off a couple extra bolts, no big deal. All right, let me get the car jacked up and we'll get this shock out of here. All right, so just for reference here, let's measure what our distance here is from the fender. We have about a 3-inch gap right there. But your measurement should be taken from the fender down to usually the center of the hub, but I don't know the exact center, so I'm going to go to the bottom of the little hub right there. So it looks like about 17.5 inches from the bottom of the mini cap to the top of the fender. I've got a good 4 fingers in there right now. So let's see how much drops off once we put these springs in there. All right. All right, so we got the front tire off, front wheel. Here's the shock. There's the spring that we're removing. Looks like there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, and there's one way back there. So there are indeed 5 bolts holding this shock up top. We're not going to loosen those yet because we are going to drop this hub down first, and we want this shock to stay up high so we can drop the hub or drop this hub down, and it should loosen up here. So there's basically a collar right here that the shock is mounted into. It's held on by a bolt there. You just need to hold the other side of the bolt right there. Got a lot of different lines here we got to remove just from their bracket. Like this one, I'll pull down. It should slide right out. Looks like a brake line. Oh, anyway, yes, that's got to get moved. There's another one here that we got to just take out of the bracket. It just, there we go. It just comes out of the bracket there. This is the driver's side. I believe on the passenger side there is one more little sensor that we'll need to disconnect. Here's one here, I think. Yeah. There we go. And we just want these to kind of be out of the way when this hub drops. We don't want to snag them, bust a wire or a line. I don't see any others. So basically we're going to disconnect this collar here. We're also going to disconnect this tie rod right here. We're basically finding anything that is going to hold this shock where it is. I think it's basically those two right there, and it should be able to drop down. Yeah, that looks like it. Just looking around, that's all I see. So that one and that one, and then we'll knock this hub down. The car's so new; it's only got like less than 1,000 miles on it, so it should come off pretty easy. I don't have to worry about rust or anything like that. And once that is down, we'll come up here and we'll go up top and underneath the engine there and underneath the hood and loosen all those up, and we should be able to pull that out. And then there's a whole nother process of getting the spring off of that shock, so we'll get into that later. Alrighty, see ya. Well, looky there. the shock is out. Took a little bit of work. Some tips on getting this thing out. This collar right here, I took the bolt out that goes right here and here, and you see this gap right here. When I took the collar out, or when I took the bolt out, this gap was still really close. So I just put a screwdriver in there, kind of pried it a little bit, got this gap a little bit wider. That loosened it up quite a bit, but I still couldn't push down the hub far enough to get the shock out. It was still getting caught there at the very bottom. So I did end up taking the bolts out up top, and there are 5 of them plus the one bracket there that's bolted to it. So it's a total of 6 bolts holding that up there. So what I ended up doing is loosening that up, and once I did that, lo and behold, the shock got really loose, and just playing around with it a little bit, really pushing down on the hub quite a bit, and wiggling this thing, twisting the shock a little bit, and I kind of wiggled it on out of there, and there is our shock. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to get a spring compressor, and we're going to compress this spring because there's a lot of tension here, because we have to get this cap off of here. So we're going to compress this spring. That's going to loosen that up, and then we're going to take these bolts off up here so we can get this cap off. I'll have to look at it a little bit closer, see what's going on. But anyway, that's essentially what we're doing, is compressing a spring. All right, so we got the strut, or the spring compressors on. They're compressing that spring, so I'm getting tension off this. I've already taken the strut apart. But let me kind of brief you on how this works. It comes right off. No, it doesn't come off that easy. There's a 3/4 inch nut right here. It goes inside there. It goes around this shaft right here. Okay, and that's the only thing holding this thing on. Thing is, you can't just put a 3/4 inch socket wrench on there, because when you do it, the whole shaft here spins. And you can get it off a little bit, but it doesn't come off the whole way. It just gets loose. So what I ended up having to do was, after I got it loose, I just got a pair of vice grips, and I was able to reach between here and clamp this guy on there just to hold that shaft, and just the last few threads of the nut came off real quick. And then once that cap is off, here's your nut. Here's your spring all compressed. Here's your shock, your boot, and all goes back on here. And then we'll just we'll decompress that real quick. That's the original. The new one is over here. So let us decompress that, and we will put them side by side, see if they measure up any different. All right, be right back. So there's our original spring, the black one on the right. There's the new one on the left. This one I can definitely see a difference in the height of it. Just get that bar even with that bar. I'm gonna look at the bottom real quick. There's a difference there, definitely, maybe a ½ inch, but it's all about how it compresses. So I wasn't expecting a big difference here, but yeah, there's definitely a difference in this one versus the rears. I couldn't see any difference at all. So we're just going to reverse this. We're going to compress the blue spring and slide it over the boot here, and then put the cap back on and drop that guy back in there, and we'll see what it looks like. All right, bye. Holy cow, it's tough to get this thing lined up right. So let me tell you what's going on. The boot here, it just wants to get all twisted up, and bent out of shape and stuff, as you're decompressing the spring, it just gets all caught up and stuff. So what I ended up doing, and it really helped, is get a pair of vice grips and actually clamp the end of your spring right in the spot it's supposed to be, right here. Just clamp that guy there, because as you decompress the spring, it wants to move everywhere, and you get it all lined up top, and then you look down here and your spring's all jacked up. So get this spot set so it's not going to move. So vice grips right there, good. And then start decompressing a little at a time, and working especially on this little this lip right here. It wants to get all bent out of shape and stuff. I think I got it in the right spot now. So we should be able to decompress this the rest of the way. And also what makes it difficult is the size of the cap on this thing. It's huge, and getting your bars to clear it, which they don't. It wants to hit right there. Makes it really difficult. So, you know, I scratched it all up and stuff, but, you know, it's just cosmetic. Nobody's going to crawl up in there and see anything. So let's get these spring compressors off. Make sure our boot looks good. Spring compressors, you can get them from AutoZone. I think they even rent them if you want, or I think they do tool loans, so you might be able to do it that way. But I bought these off Amazon. They're like 30 bucks. So not bad at all, and pretty handy dandy, easy to use. All right, take that off there. Whew. So there is the new shock with the new spring on it. It's got to go back in there. So looks good. I wish it would have been red springs, you know, spent all this money on this stuff. It'd be nice if it was red, but you know, blue's okay too. And make sure that guy's up in there nice and tight. My pins are still good. So let's get this thing back in. So I got it in there. Pretty simple. Just a couple minutes to get it all squared away. First thing I did is I lined a couple bolts up here and just kind of finger tightened them. All right, just to hold the top up there. And then down here, I basically tilted the hub to the left and then ran the shock down to it, and turned the hub back straight again, and it kind of snapped in there. I'm just pumping up the shock just a little bit, making sure it's seated in there well. I'm gonna have to look at the other side. I don't believe that white line is my mark. I can see where it was seated right here. It was not up to that white line. Not sure what that white line's for. But anyway, it's seated in there good. So now I'm just going to tighten up that nut, tighten up a little tie rod there, and then put all my little wires and lines back in their brackets, and we should be good to go. So got everything on there. I went back and checked the video, and I do need to be up to that white mark. So that took a little bit of fighting to get it up that last inch or so. What helped was keeping the bolts up above, up here, keeping those loose, because I had tightened them down, and then I was trying to get this up in there, and you just don't have enough play. So I had to loosen those back up, and then I basically did the same thing when I put it in, or when I took it out. I put a screwdriver back in that little gap back here and kind of pried it apart a little bit to open up this housing slightly, and that allowed me to snap it in there. Of course, I'm using a jack to lift up the hub, because a one-man show here, I can't have somebody else do it. So I got the jack lifted up on the hub a little bit, and it pushed it right up onto the strut just fine. Tightened up my tie bolt, tightened up my collar bolt there, got my wires all back in their little holders, and I think that was it. Yeah, so we're ready to put the tire back on. And I got one more side to do, but that side's gonna go real easy because now I know what I'm doing. All right. Well, got it all done. I just took it out for a spin, and it definitely dropped a little bit. As soon as I took the parking brake off, it kind of settled right down. And it is now in the fronts about 16, just a tick over 16. It was 17.5, so we've lost about 1.5 inches. So I used to be 4 fingers right here. I've lost a couple fingers. I can get 3 in there comfortably. It's definitely a little bit lower. I can tell. Just sitting in the car, you can tell a little bit. Of course, this is at 1 o'clock in the morning, so these aren't the greatest pictures in the world, but it does settle it down a little bit. And in the back, let's see what we are here. We are at 15.5 in the back. Definitely a lot tighter here. I can't even get 3 fingers up here, so sorry, get my finger out of the way. Yeah, I used to have like 4 fingers there. I can barely get 3 in there now, too comfortably. So definitely a little bit snugger up there. I'll do some more pictures tomorrow or sometime. But I think it looks good. Ride's great. I tried it in sport mode, and the dampers still work great, so no issues there at all. All right, it's been a long evening. I'll talk to you guys later. All right, so now we got some daylight here, so we can kind of take a look at our 2019 Countryman here that has the H&R lowering springs on it. I think it's pretty evident now. Maybe you don't have a Countryman, but I've certainly seen the before of this, and I now see the after of it, and it's definitely a lot lower than our standard Countryman. It's about 1.5 inches is what we've lost. The gap on those front tires is still pretty decent, but it's a whole lot better than what it was, that's for sure. I'm just going to do kind of a slow walk around, and we put the MGP caliper covers on there in case you're wondering what the red is back there. Those are just caliper covers. Adds a little bit of bling to it. Sits down in the back. Nice sir. Let's walk in for a little close-up right there. Yep. And I think it's settled down more than it did yesterday. I think I was fitting 3 fingers in here yesterday. I can't do that now. It's more like 2 fingers right now. I think when I started I had 4 fingers here. So it's really settled down there. Of course, these are the 18-inch mini wheels on here. I think we put some 19s on there, it'll fill it up nice and snug. Let's look down low here. Definitely settled down right there. I'll probably need to bring this to the mini dealership and just park it up next to a 2019 obviously stock Countryman, so I can kind of see the comparison. But I like it. I like the stance it has now on it, so I think it looks much better than it did before. As far as the feel, obviously I haven't taken it to the track or anything like that. Drove it around for about 15 minutes last night. and didn't notice it being any real difference, but I'm sure I'll notice it once I play with it a little bit more. But anyway, that's the 2019 F60 Countryman, all four, with the HR lowering springs installed. And took me about 6 hours to put them in. I could probably do it a lot faster, but being that I was stopping doing a video every now and then, it kind of slowed me down a little bit, but it's really not that difficult of a job. So, all right, there she is. Thanks.